The pictures right there.
You keep me in mind.
I will, let me keep you
Isn't this your hat here?
It's his hand. It's his hand. I know it's his hand. It's yours. Look at the hat. It's his hand.
Give the hat anyway.
Not here, boss.
Are you sure? Left by itself. Someone must have come in, and how would they know I would not be here? Those throne merchants. Sigmund, they will lead you to the princess. I'll wait here until you call. After them! How many times have I told you? Only when they're locked.
What's the matter? So many responsibilities. The welfare of all my people. We'd be very honored if you could come and visit us. Perhaps for the coronation.
No, I can't. What I have to do is hear with the guys in our music.
I see.
I can't see why you're so down about going back anyway. You're the queen. That's what you have to do. I guess I should have stayed in bed. My pillow rested on my head. Then I'm waking up to find like there are a different guy. He went away. It just doesn't seem to be my day. He didn't have to say a lot. The busy eyes reveal the plot. But somewhere else he wanted more. So I want to do it all. What could I say? It just doesn't seem to be my day.
All right. This just isn't going to be my day. Welcome back. Yes, it's almost time. So here we are. I'd like to welcome to the stage my good friend, Andrew Sandoval.
Hey everybody, how's it going today? I can hold the mic, look at that. I am standing up. All right, so for my next trick, I'd like to invite to the stage my good friend, Mr. Micky Dolenz. All right, just sit right back. We'll hear a tale of a fateful trip. We're at the right convention, right?
Long show.
Long show. Or did you just say for sure? I couldn't tell. So, Micky, welcome to the Monkees convention.
Thank you, Andrew. Welcome all of you. Thanks so much for coming out.
It's been a pretty incredible journey over the last 48 years. I mean, who would have thought, right?
You think?
From a small dirt town on the West Coast all the way to the Meadowlands of New Jersey. How does a young man like yourself make that leap?
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well,
I mean,
no drugs.
I didn't
but
mean
you-
today, I meant back then. I was going to ask about growing up in a showbiz family, your mother and father. You know, some people know about their careers. Your father was an amazing restaurateur. I don't know if a lot of people know that. He was a fine, fine actor as well. And your mother sang and was in entertainment as well.
Yeah, that's true, and that has a lot to do with how I ended up in my path. My mom was a singer, my father was an actor and singer, and they met doing a play in LA, and so yeah, was born into...
What play and what date was that?
I have no idea what the play was.
We'll ask Gary Strobel, right?
You could figure that out. You can find that. Yeah, they did a play and they met, and then got married, had me, or maybe had me and got married. I don't know. Back in those days. So yeah, we were a showbiz family, but not your typical sort of LA, Hollywood, Beverly Hills showbiz family. We lived on a ranch, and we had horses and gardens, and we didn't live in Beverly Hills or Hollywood or LA. Looking back, I guess that was a conscious, sort of decision that they made. It wasn't your typical Hollywood sort of, upbringing, but it was showbiz. My earliest memories are my dad going on the set and hanging out with him, and my mom singing every day, so I thought everybody's parents were actors and singers. I just didn't know anything else right from day one. But like I say, we also lived this very rural sort of, down home. My dad was from Italy, my mom was from Texas, and on her side of the family was Irish and American Indian.
Right.
So I'm Italian, Indian, and Irish. So don't get me drunk, pissed off, and armed.
I was going to ask, we just saw Coco on stage, who sounded phenomenal. Didn't Coco sound great? Such an amazing voice. I became such a big fan of Coco listening to the Monkees records, because on some of the later tracks, she's doubling Micky. She's like Micky double-tracked when the two of them sing together. It's amazing.
She sang a lot on those later Monkey tracks, and now, of course, we toured together all the time.
Yeah, it's been great. Now you have another sister, right?
Sorry?
You have another sister, right?
I have two other sisters. I have Debbie and Kathleen. Debbie is currently in Scotland, living in Scotland. Kathleen is in Northern California. And yeah, we grew up in this kind of, showbiz world. I mean, I remember my first screen test it was for a movie. It never got made, but it was for a movie, a proper Hollywood screen test. And I must have been 6, something like that. And my dad, I guess, had said, you want to, do a movie. And I was like, okay. I have some prenatal work coming out on ultrasound. Yeah, very cool. It's a DVD. It's me in like a little top hat.
I'll have to pre-order.
Prenatal stuff. It's it's a little fuzzy and black and white, but still,
So, as far as your other sisters, we saw Coco sing. Do your other sisters sing, or did you
One of them, Debbie, sings, used to. She actually could sing a little, bit, but she never pursued it. She went into business, into the business world. Kathleen, I don't think, sings. No, Coco and I, we grew up together singing, and we learned harmonies from our mom, and we sung together basically all our lives.
Yeah, I love some of the tracks that have sort of surfaced. There's this great recording of you guys doing this song called "She'll Be There."
Oh yeah.
And "Midnight Train," which I love.
Yeah.
And then now another thing, you guys on the headquarters sessions, the tape, you sing a little bit of "Bye Bye Blackbird."
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we do. One of the first songs I remember my mom teaching or singing, us in the car driving around was "Bye Bye Black," not the Beatle Blackbird,
Right.
The original, "Bye Bye Blackbird" song. And yeah, that's kind of one of the first songs I remember learning harmonies to and stuff like that.
Would you give us a demonstration of some harmony singing?
Well, not without Coco.
Coco, would you help us out?
Do you want to do that, Coco?
Perpendicular. Oh, those are close siblings.
Hello, test.
I'm always on this
Can you
side.
hear
Can I
yourself?
hear? Can I hear myself? Sure.
Pack up all my cares and woes. Here I go, singing low. Bye, bye, blackbird. Where somebody waits for me, sugar sweet, so does she. Bye, bye, blackbird. No one there to love or understand me. Oh, what hard luck stories they all hand to me. Make my bed, light the light. I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, bye-bye. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Back up on my head, so here I go singing low. Bye-bye, blackbird. Where somebody waits on me, sugar sweet, so is she. Bye-bye, blackbird. I know one there to love or understand me. Oh, what all like stories they all hand me. Make my bed, light the light. I'll arrive a little late tonight. Blackbird, bye-bye. Blackbird, oh blackbird, blackbird, oh blackbird, blackbird, bye-bye, little blackbird, bye.
Coco Dolenz.
Now you know where I learned to sing. And I'm older. And that was after a massive lasagna dinner.
Thanks for sharing. Now we want to hear Shorty Blackwell now, and Mommy and Daddy, and right?
Haven't done those in ever live.
There's so much in the catalog, and there's so much of your great music that you made after the Monkees that really hasn't resurfaced, like "Oh Someone" and "Easy on You," and you made a whole record around that time. It would be great for that stuff to come out someday.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I don't know if those, I guess those tapes exist somewhere. I don't know.
I saw some great photos I'd never seen yesterday, surprisingly, of you at home in your home studio from 1970.
Really?
Yes.
Dill's photos?
No, from another photographer. And really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little studio, and I recorded, a few little things with my Moog synthesizer,
Right. Right.
which I eventually sold to Bobby Sherman.
It's now worth $100,000 or something.
Really?
Yeah. So,
If I only knew
well,
what an idiot I was.
you and I have got a lot of time together over the years and getting to talk, and I've got to ask you lots of questions. You've been wonderful to me and very generous to the fans, and it's been, I think, what's helped perpetuate this thing over 48 years is really the love of the fans and your willingness to share with them. So I thank you for that, Micky. And I think that the best thing is, rather than it be me just asking the questions, I think we should take some questions from the fans because they often don't get a chance to ask questions.
Because you know all the answers.
Right. So
You know more than I do
so
about it.
I've got my phone.
I called up Andrew. I remember I was doing some TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Andrew. What band was I in?
I called him from backstage going on into an interview show live, and somebody says, well, we're going to talk about this song or this writer or this show. And I'm like, oh God, I have no idea. I can't remember. And so I call up Andrew. Andrew, I'm just about ready to go on stage. What was I doing on July the 14th in 1969? You were at a recording session at RCA from 2 o'clock to 4:15. And you... Oh, thank you. Okay.
It's handy to have me around sometimes.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think Dave Alexander is here and maybe has the microphone, and he's going to go run down the aisles Donahue-like, and we're going to take some questions. And we're going to try to answer them between the two of us. And
Yeah.
All right, we got a question.
Hi, Micky. I'm working on a book on the film work of Jack Nicholson, and so I'm curious about your perspective on his contributions to the script of the film Head, as well as his assembly of the soundtrack album.
Jack's...
so this is about to the script of Head, and then...
Okay, yeah. Well, we met Jack. Bob Rafelson introduced us to Jack, and we all absolutely fell in love with him and his spirit and his charisma. He's incredible, entertainer, actor, person. He's just wonderful. And he was very funny. And what we did is we all went up to a golf resort, actually, up outside of LA. And we sat around for 2 or 3 days at least, and all of us, the 4 of us, plus Jack, plus Bob Rafelson, plus Bert Schneider, and a couple of roadie assistant people. And we talked about what we wanted to do as a movie. The idea had come down that we did not want to do a 90-minute Monkee episode with a typical TV episode just stretched out to 90 minutes. We wanted to do something different. So Jack spent months, actually, going around and meeting all of us and hanging out and, partying, just kind of getting a sense of who we were individually. And then we had this weekend up in Ojai, California. And we sat around a tape recorder. I have like 16 millimeter footage of this, of us sitting around this little tape recorder, sitting on the floor, and just talking and kind of just talk, grooving and just whatever, about what we wanted to do, what we didn't want to do, what was, But the idea had always been that we're going to do something different than a 90-minute episode of the Monkees. And Jack, in his brilliance, took away, and Bob Rafelson, it must be said, also took away all of this monkeyness, you know, us and this weekend and the tapes and all this stuff. And Jack, you know, penned this incredible, weird, you know, psychedelic, you know, movie. And the thing about the movie Head, which I expect somebody will ask, I have no friggin' idea what it was about. No, in years later, you know, a good friend of mine, a movie creator, director, writer, producer named Edgar Wright, who, you know, it's one of his favorite films, and amongst many others. The movie was essentially about the deconstruction of the film industry, the Hollywood corporate studio film industry, which was going on at that time. There was Easy Rider, of course, I mean, after the Monkees and after Head. Raging Bull, Martin Scorsese, Billy Jack was trying to break through. There was a movement to try to break through the Hollywood studio system. And Head was one of the first films to kind of do that. It did help that Bert Schneider's father was the head of Columbia Pictures. But the movie was about that, the deconstruction of the Hollywood sort of classic, traditional, old school studio system. And also about the Monkees as representative of the Hollywood, you know, studios. The one scene in that movie that I think is the theme and what the movie is all about. How many people have seen that movie here? Oh. Okay. So there's a scene where it's a cavalry thing with Indians, and Mike and I are in like cavalry outfits, and Terry Garr, one of her first, I think maybe her first.
Yeah, on screen dialogue in a movie. Yeah. Terry
Garr was in the movie and in that scene, and Mike and I are there, and we're like fighting off the Indians, and it's a big set with all the landscape and the backdrops, and I get hit with like 4 or 5 arrows, and I in a fake, obviously. Fake kind of thing, and then I go, Bob, meaning Bob Rafelson, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate that. I don't want to do this. This is just crap. It's just stupid. And I break the arrows and I walk through the backdrop and burst out of this fake Hollywood scene. Well, I didn't even think about this at the time, but now I look back and I mean, that was sort of the point of the movie, the whole movie, and beyond the monkey thing, beyond the whole monkey, you know, paradigm. It was about breaking out of the traditional old school Hollywood, and they did. You know, they essentially, Bob and Bert and Scorsese, of course, and others, you know, reinvented, you know, or rather invented the independent Hollywood movie industry.
Yeah, I mean, it became known as the New Hollywood movement, and I mean, that film set is just one of the many black boxes that you guys are trying to escape from or get out of throughout the movie, and it's a metaphor for your career in many ways, because you rebelled against the producers and rebelled against Don Kirshner and all these other people who were trying to get you to do certain things, and it's been your trademark, as it were.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, it was. It was, you know, it was a very unusual situation back then. You know, nothing had been ever done like that on television. It had been done in movies. Marx Brothers movies were little musicals, and
Right.
Monkees was essentially a Marx Brothers musical in a half hour on television. Much more than it was the Beatles. It was much more like the Marx Brothers, and always It always was in my mind.
And John Lennon's too.
And John Lennon, he was the first one. Did we drop that name? No. Yeah, he's the first one that I remember saying, they're like the Marx Brothers. And it's true. It was about, it was a little Hollywood movie musical, half-hour musical on television. The closest thing I think that's come along since that is the Glee.
Right.
It's this show about this Glee club,
right.
Imaginary Glee club. But they all can do it. They can all sing and dance and play and act and perform. So that's kind of one of the closest things that's come along since that I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the second part of the question was about Nicholson's involvement in the soundtrack, which I guess I could speak to.
It was huge. I mean, he produced it, kind of produced it. There were these songs that already had been recorded, that we'd recorded, those amazing Carole King tunes, and Peter Tork tunes, who I think has two of the greatest Monkee tunes.
Yeah, definitely.
Can You Dig It? Long title are just huge. Two of my favorite songs to perform live, and Jack took that and then took snippets from the soundtrack of the movie, and I think created a wonderful little soundscape.
It's an assemblage.
And he wrote,
It's like an assemblage, like the movie, random.
Yep. And the idea was that the movie was kind of circular.
Right.
In fact, when we had this, the press opening screening in New York, it wasn't in a theater. It was like in this weird warehouse, and they set up all these, what do you call them?
Moviolas.
Moviola.
Little
That's why
editors.
I need him.
They're little editors for
The old school editing machine.
with the little screens that are about
They
this
have
big,
a
like your
little-
phone, kind of, but with a big reel of film attached to it.
And they had a little roll of film and a little tiny screen, and they set all these moviolas up around the room, and it was totally psychedelic, and I mean like out there, this party thing, launch. And they put one reel of the film on every moviola, and they just started running them, because the idea was, as kind of weird and crazy, I don't know who was smoking what back then, that you could watch the movie from any point in the movie
And still be confused.
and still it didn't matter where you started watching the movie, it would all come around to the same circular kind of Psycho Jello, Hare Krishna waterbeds, kind of thing. And they did. They played the movie, all the reels, one reel going simultaneously. And it's true, you can watch that movie from almost any part in the movie, and it all just comes back around.
Well, there's a circular motif in all the soundtrack too, and that's something Rafelson had talked to me about. And you'll see in Circle Sky, obviously, circles. The rotating stage at the theater. Do I have to do this all over again? Yeah, and then lyrics and as we go along and so forth. There's all that sort of stuff, and the Monkees are doomed to repeat that circle over and over again. And they cut out of the movie 2 full sections where you see Micky getting out of the box and you see Michael getting out of the box, as in addition to Davey and Peter. But I guess they felt at some point that made too much sense, so they ripped those out. But those do exist. So let's take another question.
How you doing, Micky? Could you describe your experiences when you visited London and visited the Beatles in the mid-'60s?
Visiting Abbey Road and the Beatles recording sessions for Sgt. Pepper in February of '67.
Was it February? What
I did
day?
that about the 15th.
What time?
I don't know. Does somebody have my book here?
What was I wearing? Well, I do remember that, obviously. I mean, I went to England on a press junket, and it was actually when I ran away from home. we were supposed to record some new singles.
Right.
One of them was Sugar Sugar, if I remember correctly, which I've just actually re-recorded on a new CD. And it was Mike that, who had been spearheading the Palace Revolt, and to his everlasting credit. And I was just a stupid, kid going, yeah, okay, Mike. But he said, we really can't go record, these new tunes. We have to get some kind of control over this music. And I said, cool, fine. So I fled. I was supposed to record that next day. I booked a flight to the UK in London, and because there was a tour coming up, so we had to do some press. And I went and I ended up there, and the first thing that happened is the publicity people said, well, Paul McCartney wants to, invite you to his home and to, did I drop that name? And I'm like, Paul who?
You just want to meet Spencer Davis, right?
Yeah. So I'm like weeing my pants, oh my God, Paul McCartney. So I go to his house in
St. John's Wood.
St. John's Wood. What was the address again?
What part of the house?
Just me and him, just having dinner. We had some to eat and we watching TV. And there was a photographer there and some friends and stuff. But it was very intimate. And we kind of hung out for a few hours. And he invited me over to Abbey Road the next day for some sessions that I didn't know what they were. It was for Sergeant something. Whatever happened to that album?
They put it out.
That was really good. I don't know. You never know. Some things just tank, So anyway, I got dressed up, and if you've ever been to one of my concerts or a Monkee concert, I've told this story so many times. So for those of you that have heard it, laugh like you haven't heard it before. I go to the concert, I go to the recording studio, the limo picks me up, and I got dressed up like I was going to a major party. A Beatlemania, Fun Fest, Freak Out, Psycho, Jello thing with my paisley bell bottoms and my tie-dyed underwear and my hair up in beads and the linen glasses and stuff. I looked like a cross between Ronald McDonald and Charlie Manson, right? And I show up and there's nobody there except the four guys. The place looks like my high school gymnasium, like fluorescent lighting. And they're just the four guys sitting there playing. And I was like, so wiped out. I was like, where are the girls? And John Lennon says, hey, Monkee Man. That's what he called me. Monkee Man. You want to hear what we're working on? And he points up to George Martin, and I never forget this, that studio at Abbey Road, the control booth was on the second floor and the studio was on the bottom. And George Martin's wearing a three-piece suit in the middle of the afternoon. And he pushes a button on a 4-track tape recorder, only 1 track more than his suit. And they played the tracks for Good Morning, Good Morning.
Right.
Which, of course, is burned into my memory. I listen to the tracks. I'm trying to be so cool. Hey, cool guys. Hey, John. Yeah, all right. And we sat down at 4 o'clock, a little BBC Abbey Road guy comes in a white apron and he has tea at 4 o'clock. And we sat and chatted about, life. And then there was John was the one who said, all right, lads, down the mines. Let's get back to work, down the mines. And looking back, now I realize how they managed to accomplish that incredible amount of work in such a short period of time. They just didn't screw around. every day from, I don't know what time, 9 in the morning till 9 at night or something. And Good Morning was that track that I was there for. And then a few months later, I was directing and I'd written and directed that episode of the Monkees, Micky, the Throat Escaper. And I must have, oh, thank you. And I guess I told the producer, Bob or Bird or whoever, I said, I don't remember, I said, oh man, I really want that song, that, a Beatles song, for that opening, shot. And I'll be damned, they must have made a call. I don't remember how it happened, really, but at that time it was unheard of to get a Beatle tune for any other, purpose. And they said yes. Somebody said Apple or whatever they were doing. Somebody said yes, and we used the original recording on that.
Yeah, it's at the very beginning of Good Morning, at the front of the last Monkees episode to date. I was going to ask you though, if you felt going in, you're hearing these tracks, and obviously I know you're an enormous Beatles fan, but what it was like to be one of the Monkees. At that time, you were enormously successful already. It's February of '67. You already had I'm a Believer, which was topping the charts. You were kind of escaping. Davey was back in New York City, and he put a vocal on a new song, A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You. So the Kirshner thing was sort of continuing, but you had been in the studio doing Girl I Knew Somewhere, and you're kind of going to this new thing. Did you feel the Monkees could be competitive, not competitive like in a race, but could keep up with the Beatles, hearing this new sort of avant-garde music they were doing, and you guys were just getting into some folk rock stuff for Headquarters? Did you sort of say, well, guys, we gotta expand and explore? Did you even feel like you were in league with them, or you were just gonna go along with whatever music came up? How did you feel musically?
Good question. I was an actor, entertainer, and I had been hired to play the part of this wacky drummer on a television show, and I ended up singing a lot of the leads. But even at that time, I didn't really know the music industry. I knew the television industry, and I knew film, and I knew the entertainment industry, but I didn't really know the music industry much. So I was hired, and I was quite happy to, for Donnie Kirshner, who, by the way, had incredible ears. I mean, Donnie Kirshner.
They were pretty big too, right?
Yeah, they were big, and he had amazing ears for hit songs, obviously, like Clive Davis or that genre of those people. So I was quite happy to, when they said, here's a new song. Carole King or somebody, or Boyce and Hart, Bobby and Tommy, who, of course, Bobby, are you here? Is Bobby?
Bobby is not in the room, but we are showing the movie that you are part of later.
These guys, they essentially were the original sound, like producers are. Producers, that's their job, is to kind of take a band or an act and create a coherent, sort of sound, a whole style, or whatever. Well, that's Bobby and Tommy. I mean, they had an enormous amount to do with that, more than anybody else I remember, including Donnie Kirshner, who he was running the Brill Building, of course, and he would, funnel in songs from these unknown writers at the time, like Carole King, Neil Diamond, Neil Sedaka, David Gates. And I remember meeting these writers in Hollywood. I even write about it a little bit in, I think, my book, and also in that album I just did. I remember going down. Lester Sill, brought me down and said, "You should meet your writers."
Right.
And so I'm like, "Yeah, cool." And he says, "Hi, Micky. This is Carole King. She's going to be writing songs for you." "Oh, nice to meet you. Hi." "Hey, this is David Gates, and he's going to be writing songs." "Oh, nice to meet you." And I met all these people who, of course, I had no idea who they were, because I had not been in the music business so much at that time. So you know, Donnie brought an enormous amount of success and input, and these songs that he had found, or that his writers, because these are staff writers, these are,
Right.
in those days there was this, you know, organization called Screen Gems Publishing Music, which was the Brill Building back east. And so not coincidentally, that was the sister company of Screen Gems Television, run by Jackie Cooper, which was a sister, child of Columbia Pictures, which was run by Bert Schneider's father.
It was the perfect storm, basically.
The perfect storm, yeah. And a great idea, of course, that Bob had come up with. And of course the Beatle invasion and the whole pop music scene. There was like 3 or 4 other shows that year, pilots, that I had been up for, music pilots. And I'd had some success before, of course, in Circus Boy, but there was 3 other shows at least. You'll probably remember the names. There was one that actually went to pilot called the what?
The Happeners.
The Happeners. I was up for that.
Yes.
I was up for the Happeners, and I auditioned for that. It went to pilot.
Went to pilot. One of the writers went on to become a songwriter for the Monkees. Craig Smith wrote Salesman.
Oh, wow.
And
See?
he had a band that Michael Nesmith fostered called the Penny Arcade.
Yeah.
So.
And then there was some show I remember, like, about a surfing band.
Right.
I don't remember the name, or it didn't go to pilot, but I was up for that. And then another one about a kind of new Christy Minstrel, big, you know, a mighty wind.
Right.
Act, you know, I guess it was a show about a whole family, or I think that kind of became the Partridge Family, actually. I was up for that. So it was in the air. It was in the air to have some show about that time, that music, and that generation.
Right.
And of course the Monkees did go to pilot, you know, but it almost didn't. It was a real close call, you know, whether or not that was going to sell.
And that's been almost 50 years ago, November 65, when you shot that pilot. In September, when you guys were all, you know, the ad was placed, and it's pretty incredible.
Really?
Yes. So let's take another question.
Here you go, right here.
Hi, Micky. Scott Campbell Duncan. I'd like to know if you could share with us what you do to maintain such strong vocals.
Yes.
Contemporaries of yours, Beatles, Stone, or who, don't hit those high notes anymore. What's your secret?
There's my other voice is in an attic getting older. No, it's a good question. I have been asked that a few times. I think it's a combination of a few things. One is just genetics. My parents were both singers, and so I think I just inherited, you know, probably the physicality, the musculature, because your vocal cords are essentially little muscles that you have to train and take care of, and, you know, you're either born with them or not, to some degree. So I think a little bit of genetics. The other thing is, well, actually a lot maybe of genetics. And then I think after the Monkees, post-Monkees, I went to England. I moved to England and started directing and producing television shows and films and stuff. And I didn't sing for a good 10 years at least, at all. And so I missed that whole mid-70s, 80s, you know, kind of post, you know, thing where you would go out and you'd sing in clubs and, you know, smoke-filled clubs with cigarettes and no monitors or nothing. I remember my mom once during the Monkees, and she was a proper singer. She had been trained. And I remember once she came down to LA and to kind of hang out and see me. And we'd already had a bunch of hits. It was like already, the whole Monkee thing was huge. So it was probably 67, 68. And she came down to LA and she said to me, she went to a recording session. We were recording something. And she said, Micky, you know, you might want to get, you know, some lessons about how to breathe and how to sing and, you know, breathe and stuff. And I was so stupid. I just said, Mom, I just sold 65 million records. And there, you know, there's probably something to be said there for the fact that the Monkees was essentially, you know, this kind of trashy garage band, basically. And that sound, that raw, untrained sound, you know, probably had a little bit to do with it. Anyway, so I missed all the 70s and 80s doing clubs and smoke and, you know, everything else. And well, I came back and started singing, of course, in the reunion tours. But then the big change, and I think the thing that's most fundamental was when I started doing musical theater in 2001 or 2, whatever it was. I got cast in Aida, the Elton John Tim Rice musical on Broadway, and the national tour. And my manager said, you know, you really should get some training because it's 8 shows a week and it's like big time vocals, you know. And I said, oh, are you sure? I mean, so I actually told Paul McCartney this. Did I drop that name?
You gonna pick it up again?
I was talking to Paul a couple of years ago at a rehearsal he was having, and we were talking about vocal training, and he was asking me about the Broadway thing and the vocals, and I said, well, you know, and I told him this story about how I went to this vocal coach, amazing guy in LA called Eric Vitra, and I said, when I went to my first